But moving on. Yeah, I remember this this situation. Let's see. So I end up giving a cut penalty for the jammer here because, well, let's see. Okay. I see. Yeah, I guess the thing to assess here is that who is the one responsible for the hit that brings the jammer out of bounds. Looking at the footage, it's pretty clearly this one. So this is the block that takes them out of bounds. And the other thing is obviously the point at which the jammer goes out of bounds. So is it here already? But actually I think it's here. And we can see that the initiator of the block being out of bounds. And yeah, jammer out of bounds. Re-entering, actually even not even re-entering in front of them. Yeah, so this is not a cut. This is a very bad call by me. So let's treat it as like a warning example on what not to call. I'm just trying to figure out what I thought was happening in real time, I believe. Well, clearly this skater is not very much part of the situation, so I believe the call ended up being that I think this skater had superior position, which would make sense if the jammer went out now, but they don't. Yes, and they are also kind of like recycling. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything by itself. Yeah, but the mistake I make is that I think that this skater, for some reason, I think this skater had superior position. And I remember being a bit confused in real time by the skater's actions because they didn't like make sense to me, but yeah. It's good habit to not let that affect your calls. But yeah, obviously the skaters have reasons for their actions, and yeah, well, in this case, well, it's a pretty clear mistake. The only baffling thing for me is that what I was thinking in real time. But I think I got my train of thoughts correct. For some reason, I thought the jammer was out of bounds earlier than they were. But even if that's the case, usually I should be deferring the call to the OPR, who is the closest there. They have the best information on when the jammer goes out of bounds and who had superior position. It's also possible that I got somehow assessed the initiator of the block wrong. I think that actually is more probable. But, well, it didn't look that confusing from the footage, but there you go. Okay. Bottom line, very bad call. Annoying mistake. But as always, the hardest thing about mistakes is to try to learn from them and then leave them behind you. Which I struggle at, so I'm gonna think about that mistake a lot for a while now, but trying to not let it come in the way of more analysis. Here, again, like initiator assessment, I think my jammer is inbounds there. Actually, the skater, even if my jammer went out of bounds, the skater would have lost their superior position. So nothing to look for here. Moving on, moving on. Or at least trying to. It's one of the building blocks, like mental building blocks as an official is because that will happen a lot. You will like replay some situations over and over again in your head, which is very unhelpful usually. And if you should be like looking at new situations, it will get in the way. So one tool you can try to adopt is like get some sort of like ritual or like a gesture or like something you do also like physically as a ritual. It's okay, now only look forwards, forget about the last jam. That can help you orient yourself better. But anyway, here we are getting recycled way back. I believe the pivot might have at least almost was already out of play. Finally, we complete the initial trip. Some jammer on jammer action. Very close. Close there. I tried to freeze frame at the point where the fourth whistle is heard. So that's the point in time that jam actually ends. And from the footage, this pivot is still in front by the hips, so 0 points. Nice move on the inside. Slight touch with the forearms, but in my assessment clearly not taking a whip from the opponent or using them to stay in bounds.
3, 2, 4, 7, direction.
Here I'm calling a direction, like for this action. Moving clockwise while hitting my jammer ever so slightly, but putting them out of bounds, so
3, 2, 4, 7, direction.
Direction penalty there. I think this has been all the points. Always a bit hard when like you're supposed to call it, well, calling off defined as repeatedly touching the hips with your hands. So that's at least 2 touches to the hips. Obviously I can't really see completely because vision is obscured. I clearly, well, the jammer clearly like stated their intent. So you will need to like use your like common sense a bit when calling off the jam, even if, because you can't always clearly see the hips and the touches. So sometimes you have to like use your, like, try to keep a balance between actually 100% seeing what's going on and like just like trying to call a good game of roller derby. Not be in the way of what the skater's clear intentions are. But we might even see later in this game a good example on how that can go both ways. But yeah, there's this unofficial hand signal for OPRs that they use with they tap their helmet with their wrists or hands, which is an indication that they see a jammer calling off the jam. But only the jammer ref ever calls off the jam due to the jammer calling, so no any pack refs. So let's see. So here we have the 3 points and the hit here and still in bounds, so clearly all the points scored. This is a pass. Trying to see if, yeah, looks actually that the white jammer staying in bounds all the time. You can see in real time it can be like hard to tell whether the skate touches out, but when you go frame by frame, pretty clearly not touching, out of bounds. Maybe some perspective on like this frame by frame analysis, and like real time is something else. I mean, if you're looking at this stuff like wondering that it looks like really clear and easy, but you haven't tried it out, I recommend you do, because it's like a great and fun hobby for one, but it can also be like quite enlightening. Getting through. No lead for us. And the jam is called right away. Strong pushing in the back wall. Here I'm like, well, there's this upper arm. I'm watching this developing like situation here. There I think it's I don't think this is high block. I think this is the jammer's head going into the arm. And this is a hard one to call, because you could argue this is already blocking with the head, like in an unsafe way, like pushing with your head, and certainly could be called already. But it's kind of hard, because if it's not like leading with the head, clearly the main force is being pushing with the body, and this is like sort of incidental contact up here. But if you're like pushing with your neck, then that can be quite dangerous. So often those things are called pretty aggressively. But yeah, we sneak through on the inside, completing our initial trip. Not having a blocking with the head call. And the jump's called off, moving on to the next one. Jammer being recycled, Seeding the cut in time. Lead for the opposing team. Still stuck a bit thinking about that cut call. Yeah, there I signaled that there was contact to the back of the skater, but I think it was initiated by the skater, not the back block. They are presenting an illegal target zone. And being blocked also to the down skater, so no illegal contact there. Getting through. Jump being called. And now, as you can see, we're following the green jammer. We are on the second period of this game. Getting through. Without lead. Here we clearly get points before the jam is called. Let's see if we can tell how many. Here we can... I think there's... a bit hard to tell even how many white blockers there are. I think there's 3 white blockers on the track. And this one clearly passed, so I think that's 2 points. This game very physical, slower packs, a lot of pushing. All clear. Strong offense, still not making a dent into the tripod really. They're looking a bit of my jammers' hands, whether they're pushing this blocker away with the hands or not. Very hard to tell. I don't think so. At least not clearly enough for my taste. So we are on our first scoring trip with the lead jammer status. I have a bit of hard time here reading this jammer's actions, whether this is already a call-off. Maybe not. Not 100% sure that was the start of the jammer's call-off motion, but that's when it got clear enough for me, so that's when I call it off. White jammer getting through, but I believe they did not get the lead. So, yep. And also, yeah. Let's see this whole thing through. There was this no earned pass situation. So, and yeah, clearly my jammer knows everything that's going on here. They're very hardly fighting. to get the lead before the white jammer has a chance to score. And I have a very quickly I need to call the lead and directly the call off right after, as quickly as I can, because I also know it's very time sensitive. The jam will end when I end it, not when the jammer is making the signal, so it's up to me to make sure that the opposing team doesn't get any unearned points. Getting through without lead. Jam called off before any points, so zeros for us. The team's very close to the jammer line at the start. Not my job to be looking at it, but can't help but to be quite aware of it. I believe we're staying in bounds. Bigger pile there on the infield. Everything, all the re-entries look good. Lead awarded to whites. So green jammer, not even quite sure what I was signaling there. I think I'm signaling this possible high block, because my jammer here going this way already, and this white 1-3 like putting their head in the way, so there is contact high, but it's not a high block, and I wouldn't also either like blocking with the head call. I think that's just like putting your head in the way of the jammer without it being a foul, so. But yeah, very important to be aware of any high contact. Getting through without lead status. Sort of expecting a call off, and there it is, 0 points. In these videos, obviously, you can't really tell the score. But this game is quite tight, and it's a semi-final game of the national champs, so there's a lot on the line. You can hear the crowd getting into it more. Here I think I see that the jammer still stayed in bounds. Here going out of bounds. Maybe. I was like a bit watching that that they are actually already going out of bounds, because what would be illegal is for this jammer to jump out of bounds to dodge this incoming hit. But clearly that's not what's going on. I think I went over to ask from the OPR clarifying the situation, so I know the correct score to give, which from the footage that looked like to clearly being 2 points. We are stuck on the initial trip, opposing jammer already on the scoring trip. Some nice jukes, breaking up the tripod. And a lot of offense, so we might be getting through, not quite. Strong defense. Some sort of penalty whistle there. Didn't quite catch it, but as long as it's not for my jammer, I don't really care that much as the jam ref.